Hey, how's it going? I'm in my cold garage, so I'm all huddled up together. So how do we work with a topic where we want to know what there is to know? Like, what are the most important things about something? And then how do we work into literature and building our own ideas and all of that sort of stuff? This is a great question, and this is something that um, even I struggle with still. So this is kind of like a guideline, but a lot of it's going to be dealing with as you learn something, does that change how you do everything else? And you got to negotiate back and forth, and it's that can be tough. And I can help you along the way, so feel free to contact me. But these are some of the. This is my systematic way of going through stuff. First thing is I'm familiar with intersectionality, but I wanted to know more about not necessarily the populations that it affects, but the academic disciplines that look at it seriously. So I think gender is a big one, but also it's business and public policy are looking at those. But how do you find out more about those things? You can go through Wikipedia or just do like a intersectionality and see what people talk about. And you're not using these as your research, but you're using this as what we call background info, where you're gathering and you're validating what you know and you're discovering new things, and so on and so forth. So Wikipedia is going to be great. I wouldn't read too far into it. It's more fun to kind of go into it cold, because reading a whole bunch of stuff can be burdensome and it gives me anxiety. I always want to be like on the go. So if you get a main point of this, that's a place to start. The second place that I would highly recommend, since this is related to the Civil Rights Act of 1964, that protected people um, very, very descriptively based on ancestry, gender, all sorts of sexual orientation, all those different things. And that was a big one that happened. And a lot of court cases on discrimination go back to that 1964 thing. So in the US government, they're obliged to address questions like this and they will report out. So if you just, and it's a great word because it's not ambiguous and it's not tied into any other things. So you kind of get what you get. So from USA.gov, because in the United States, it's a federal law that government documents have to be public unless it's like, state secrets and things like that. So you can go in and you can see all these different groups that are working on it. So the U.S. Park Service has something that they talk about. I don't know what PD Health is. National Institute of Health, intersectionality defined. This one is really good because we have different professions. So we might have educators, we might have hospital workers, all sorts of different people who are talking about it. National Library of Medicine. This is the one that I would recommend. Oh, it's Native American intersectionality. I was going to say EDI is equity, diversity, and inclusion. This video breaks down the ABCs of intersectionality. So I would say look at a few of these. I don't think there's like a ranking of like which one is the most important. I think the National Institute of Health would probably be a great place to start. But it'd be cool to see what the National Park Service has to say. So there's constituency. There's the people who are interested in intersectionality as a protection for discrimination, and then you have groups that want to honor the law and promote that population or decrease discrimination. So there's all sorts of different angles that you can approach this from. So this one looks like a casual way to start. It's got has a friendly face to start off with. That's really good. That's encouraging. But again, it's not scholarly. So how do we get into the scholarly stuff? Well, if we go to the Marriott Library, and I apologize for being so ambiguous and open-ended, but you can grab it from all these different places. And I'll show you more specificity as we go in. But one last time where we type in intersectionality. is you can go into the books that have been published. So if you think in an academic library, so not a public library, but an academic library, excuse me, most of the conversations are going on in scholarly papers. And so peer-reviewed articles in journals and scholarly conferences and things like that, where groups of people get together and chew on those big ideas. Books are kind of what happens after a lot of that's been chewed on, and it's kind of like a greatest hits sort of thing that comes out. There's some disciplines that use books a lot, but most of them use scholarly articles to chew on ideas, and then once they're refined into like, what do you need to know, that's in books. And especially due to COVID, we're getting a lot of electronic books, so this shouldn't be something you have to worry about getting a print book for. And I'll show you how to consider books when you're still just brainstorming, because like reading a book is overwhelming. It's just like, how am I going to read 300 pages, and how do I know if it's worthwhile? And you get burned down by that, anxiety-wise. So what you can do is, by date, go to the books that are in the last 5 years or so. So here's creation date. Looks like the conversation started in 1989. The conversation now is going to talk about 1989 if those moments are important, but you don't have to read the whole scope of like 30 years of literature. So I'd say go up to, just for the sake of having it being expedient, go up to 2016. So, or whatever you think is the most recent years that's allowable. 2016 is good because we had a presidential administration change then that changed a lot of these things, how people look at civil rights and discrimination. So we still have 958. And here's one cool thing that you can do. I'm letting it load. So this is a relevancy rating. I don't know how they say that these are the most relevant. Might be that they get clicked on the most. It might be that they're the newest. So this 2020. You get to determine, and you might have to look through several titles. But one thing you should be aware of is that if you see something that looks kind of in the ballpark, like this one looks pretty good. Like this one is just talking about communication, which is a discipline in the College of Humanities here. Sometimes it's in social sciences in other institutions. And here's introducing intersectionality. But let me show you what you can do. When you go into an ebook, read the stuff that's interesting to you, obviously. But if you want to just scan it for ideas of like what's being written about or what you might be interested in for writing, look for their table of contents, and you can see how they organize the information. A book like this, like a textbook, is literally, did I point the right? No, I got to point to the book this way. I'm doing it Brady Bunch style. When you're looking at the book this way, the table of contents is essentially going to be their literature review of the main points that they think are the most important on this topic. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Awkward silence. And if you can't get into any of these, let me know. They don't always work. Okay, so here's the book. It's great. But I want to know, how do the chapters work? I'm going to zoom into the chapters. Hopefully it won't reload on me. So introduction is going to be good because that's going to be an overview. But here we have Black feminist thought, women of color. So we have notions of ancestry. We have notions of gender. I don't know what that one's about. Provisional concept, critical engagements, identities as coalitions, intersectionality and decolonialism. So this one might not have been the best. Let's go to that one that looked like a general one. I was hoping that they would give me like a better table of contents. Introducing intersectionality. I want it broken down so I don't have to do any work, right? I want my literature review spelled out for me. Oh, fiddlesticks. We haven't ordered this one yet. Okay, well, you get the idea. Table of contents is one way to go. Another way of going into looking at all of these books en masse in kind of like, well, what's the most important thing for all these books all together, is down on the right-hand side. There's sorting options. And first of all, you can see Jordan Zachary has published 4 books. Most of them are in English, which is just because of our collection. I'm trying to get down to subjects. Where's subjects? Oh, there's subjects. Sorry, I passed it by. Okay, so subjects right here. These are written by the publishers of the book, and they say these are the things that are the most important thing about our book on intersectionality. So if we look at those, it's kind of like a list of important topics that have been written about by each book. So gender shows up at the top. That's written by 127 books. And then feminism as a political movement, gender studies, sociology, social conditions. That would be an interesting one. Are they talking about like how wealthy or poor somebody is? And does that make a difference? Here they're talking about public policy. History might be good. Looks like a lot of it is with gender identity, which surprises me because I thought most of it was about racism. Racism mixed with sexism. So going through books, look for chapters that are interesting to you. Lastly, here's how you get into the scholarship that's being talked about right now. So this is a guide. I wish I could put this in chat. Maybe I could make the browser come down. Oh, there you can see it. So Campus Guides, libutah.edu/socialwork/SW6110. This is the class that I made this for, but it works for your class too. So there's the getting started. Step 1, we already did that background info. Step 2 is mid-level research. All of these are places where scholars will have their papers published, and then people can interact with them in comparison to everything in social sciences for this one. Whoops, did I just click on that? Or everything in sociology, or everything in psychology. Each one of these is a discipline that you could go into. We do have a gender studies database too, if you're particularly interested in that. Let me go into, for example, I'll go into sociology. Sociology is looking at, it's got psychology, but a lot of it is like how people interact or identify with each other in groups. So networks, communities, cities, towns, that sort of a thing. And, oh, here's cool. They have like all these other ones. Intersectionality and beyond. Well, that's a helpful keyword, isn't it? No, I'm just kidding. I'm going to do that same thing where I look in the subjects. So 6,700, many of these are scholarly articles. But how do you know which ones are the ones that interest you or the best ones? You could go piece by piece and go through all those articles. You can also narrow by date. So let's go to 2016 again. And it's going. So that cut our list in half. You can also narrow down by scholarly journals only. Scholarly journals are things where they go to great pains to make it so it's not biased or influenced or anything but the data itself shows up. Magazines are kind of like opinion. Dissertations is what you would write in a college to earn your PhD. But we just want scholarly journals, I would say. It doesn't narrow it down a ton, but it does weed it out. Okay, so in the last 5 years, 3,000 scholarly articles have been written across the disciplines that go into sociology. From there, we can then go into subject again. And we'll start to see some of the same things that we've seen before. So women, feminism, gender. Race places higher. Ethnicity shows in this one. Racism, sexuality, that's the first time that I've seen that one. So we didn't have that in books, but it shows up in articles in the last 5 years. That's a big deal. Gender or transgender or all of those different issues might fall under that one. So this might help you brainstorm. Politics, activism, oppression, power, marginality. Oh, migrants. That is a big deal. Our last president focused a great deal on migrants. And so discrimination against migrants, that might be a part of intersectionality. So you get the idea. There's a lot of different ways that you could slice this up. What are you most interested in? I would say whatever one or two of those subjects might be enough for your bibliography, or you could pick one of each as a sample. Let me show you what's going on. I'll look at I'll go to ethnicity. So I'm just going to look at that 300 articles that have intersectionality, the last 5 years, and ethnicity. And it's going again. Now here's where you're going to get, it's going to be really, really focused. So, oh, how interesting. So maybe intersectionality talks about something else. So it's like gender rights. Okay, so it's close. 10 years of research, privilege, solidarity. Go through these, and if you find one that's interesting to you, save it. So here's like career progression in law. If you find one that you like, there's usually a little email thing. You can see it right under my head. You can email yourself the article. Email yourself every one that you think is interesting and read like the abstract, and you'll start to get a feel for what's going on. So the abstract is the article boiled down into like they don't do cliff notes. It's not spark notes. I forget the name of it. Well, it's the truncated. It's just the facts, just what's going on in this report. And you can also see other keywords that they use. So if you found a good article that you really like, you can click on any of those and get to the articles too. Okay? This is a ton of information. So let me know if you get stuck. I'm happy to help in the future, obviously, but this is a good way to get your feet wet and figure out what interests you the most for that bibliography. And good luck, and let me know how it goes.